damaging is all of this to the reputation of Parliament, first of all?
I mean, obviously, it's very damaging, but I think I'd like to say, especially to any young women who are watching who might be interested in a career in politics, that Westminster can be a wonderful place to work. I worked for an MP for 5 years, and it's fantastic. I mean, the opportunities you get there can be amazing. I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today if I hadn't had that job. So I just want to say it's not the sort of hell cesspit that some might present it at. That said, there are these kind of power dynamics at play in this place that make it possible for this culture of bullying and sexual harassment to flourish. And, I mean, it's basically a Victorian system. It was only in 2018 that staff like me who worked for MP has any kind of independent system of complaints if they had a problem with the MP that they worked for. So I think changes are needed, but I think we need to get a sense of proportion. You know, if you look at who's in the cabinet, you look at, 2 of the great offices of state are held by women. It's not a place where women can't succeed.
No, but I mean, to say we need to get a sense of proportion, do you think it's acceptable for an MP to be watching porn in Parliament? And what message does that send to lots of people, not just parliamentarians, but to society at large? Young men growing up thinking, well, if that old boy is able to do that in one of the highest offices in the land, then I can certainly, skip off school or whatever it might be. The message is terrible.
Yeah, I mean, that's not appropriate in any workplace. I mean, Dominator or not, you can see how he might have made that mistake, but he said himself he went a second time, and God knows what he was thinking.
What do you think, Alice, the people, the voters in the red wall districts are thinking, bearing in mind these local elections looming and publicity like this, obviously affecting, I think, people's perceptions?
So what I've heard is that these kind of scandals are actually playing worse in the kind of more traditional, safe Tory seats in the south, whereas in the red wall, people are more likely to think that MPs and politicians are all the same. So I think with the local election results, it'll be interesting to see what happens geographically and how these things play out differently.
What about these 56 MPs who are under investigation, 3 of whom are in the cabinet? I mean, Kwasi Kwarteng yesterday was saying that, there are a few bad apples within Parliament. How do you deal with those? How do you weed them out? And how do you make sure that this culture doesn't become the norm?
I think the first thing to say is that these complaints are coming forward now because, as I said, there was only the complaint system only existed since 2018. So I think what we're seeing is things working their way slowly through the system. But I think we certainly need that system to speed up. Andrea Leadsom, who did wonderful work on this, she set up the independence complaints system when she was leader of the House, has said that we need a complete overhaul. We need an independent HR system for MPs so that they can choose their researchers, but they don't employ them, they don't make those decisions about them. And I think that would be a good start.
What about Lindsay Hoyle with this radical overhaul? And you talk about the work Andrea Leadsom's done. She's been quoted as well, as you say, as trying to tackle this. I mean, how quickly can these changes be made?
I think it can't come quickly enough. But I also think we need to be beware of throwing out the baby with the bathwater. So, as I say, Westminster is a very unique workplace, but that's one of the things that makes it so special. And I think there's a bit of sort of pearl-clutching hypocrisy about complaints about the drinking culture, for example. I don't think we want a situation where MPs feel that they can never socialise with journalists or with staff. I don't think that would be good for the career prospects of younger researchers, and I don't think it would be good for getting these stories to come ultimately into the papers.
What was your experience at the bars, though, in the Palace of Westminster?
I have to say, I've worked at both a national newspaper and in Westminster, and the bullying and sexual harassment culture was worse at a newspaper than it was in Westminster. Having said that, I arrived in Westminster, I was a bit older. Some of my colleagues were very young, just out of university, and I think they had a far worse time than I did, I think. And again, as I say, that's because of the power dynamics. It's the more vulnerable, the weaker you are in Parliament, the more of a target you are, I think.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.